talk about calculations. The first question is, what calculations should we talking about? Are we talking about the astronomical new moon, which is the totally dark invisible moon, which is not the Hilal? No, we should not talk about that. If we talk about calculations, we should first of all talk about the calculations for the naked eye visibility of Hilal from the surface of the earth. And the Matla for this visibility is the local Matla. In the case of North America, they have taken we've taken the US and the contiguous US and Canada as the Matla, because if you take any bigger than that, it becomes too much waiting for the East Coast. ISNA in 2006 adopted calculations, but these calculations were way off the mark. They were calculating even a small possibility of a telescopic sighting at the international dateline, which is about 7 hours from the East Coast. And these calculations were proven wrong by actual photographs of the thin crescent taken next day and posted on websites such as zaytuna.org. And also they were proven wrong by actual sighting reports, because not only was the Hilal not seen at the IDL, but it was not seen across the IDL beyond the international dateline. In Japan, in Indonesia, could not see it. Thailand could not see it. And the first sighting happened next day in Sri Lanka. So how could next day's sighting of Sri Lanka be used for America, or on the previous day? So ISNA calculations were proven wrong. Now in 2007 they have again changed the calculations, and this time they are talking about using moonset after sunset in Makkah. This is even more incorrect. So they are just using the calculations which are blatantly incorrect. Also, this ISNA calculation is having a bad effect overseas. In my last meeting with the Chief Justice Sheikh Saleh Al-Udhan, I met him in his masjid in Riyadh, and he was referring to the ISNA calculations to justify the dates which were the announced dates. So first of all, if you want calculations, use the right calculations which are for local visibility of Hilal, and they are available at www.icoproject.org, www.crescentwatch.org, and other websites. Secondly, there is a zone of uncertainty in calculations. What does it mean? So after we agree that calculations should be done to predict the naked eye sighting, the point is that these models, when they are built, they are primarily based on the angular separation of the moon and sun at sunset. They are not, the age of the moon is not the single most important factor, because in summer you can see a younger Hilal, and in winters it takes a much older Hilal to be seen. So the angular separation is the most important. Now, when you see these calculations, there are areas called zone of uncertainty where the calculation cannot give you an answer. Let's go back to a slide we saw before. Okay. See, we said here there's multiple curves here. So this curve says you will definitely see by naked eye in this area if there is, of course, no clouds. Now this second curve says that you can only see if there is very good conditions, very perfect conditions. So this area between these two curves may see the Hilal or it may not see the Hilal. And clearly the calculation is not going to give you a definitive yes or no answer. Now here, other areas it could give an answer. Here it will give you a definite yes answer. Here it will say definitely you cannot see the Hilal at all. But this area is the zone of uncertainty, and you cannot say for sure that Hilal will be seen or not. So the issue is that we have to understand that these calculations do have a zone of uncertainty, and for about 20% of the cases, when the western part of our Matla is in the zone of uncertainty, then we have to use actual sighting to decide. And when the calculations are not in the zone of uncertainty for our area, then of course we can reject or negate the false sighting by use of calculations. So we should work on refining these calculations using worldwide data and establish Hilal sighting committees, and let these two go hand in hand. We are not saying calculations can replace sighting. They can only help sighting, and that's a view of many scholars of the dominant madhab and scholars like Imam Nawawi and Ibn Taymiyyah, that use the calculations to negate. So what we're saying is use the calculations to negate the errors, but not to replace sighting completely. And of course, if we are outside the zone of uncertainty and if the matla is big enough, then we could use them in the positive also perhaps, but definitely we cannot say that we do not need sighting at all. So this is something I just want to also quote Dr. Muhammad Ilyas of Malaysia, the founder of modern day Hilal visibility models, that he basically says that there are numerous ill-informed astronomers assuming the role of experts who on occasions have made claims about astronomical calculability of the visibility far beyond the limit permitted by the then status of understanding of underlying physical phenomena. The ability to land the man on the moon has been wrongly assumed to be a valid defense of the calculations. So basically what he's saying is that yes, the position of moon can be calculated precisely, but the visibility models can have a zone of uncertainty, and it is the non-astronomers who are sometimes more confident about this calculation than the astronomers themselves. So sometimes it is said a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, and that's what we see happening here. So the bottom line is we are saying sighting and calculations are complementary and both are needed. Yes, indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put rules in place, and it says in Surah Ar-Rahman, the sun and the moon are following, bihusban, they are following a hisab. So we do have scholars like Al-Munay of Makkah Mukarramah who are supporting using calculations to negate sightings, but not to replace sighting. Also, the historical basis or one of the early scholars to use calculations to negate errors is Imam As-Subki, and basically what he says is that calculation is a yaqeen or a certainty, and sighting is a zan or something which can be doubt. So certainty should overrule the doubts. However, this means that you use the calculations only outside the zone of uncertainty. By the way, this fatwa is also referred to a recent Arab news article, not a very recent, it's 2002, so it's also referred by a Saudi newspaper, and also scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah have written a lot on astronomy in fact, and given the minimum angle for the moon visibility, but none of them are saying that you completely replace sighting by calculations. So again, sighting and calculations are complementary. If the calculations say with certainty that Hilal cannot be visible, then we should reject or negate the false sighting and reduce the errors. But when we are in the zone of uncertainty, then we should be using actual sighting only, and we should keep on refining our models until they become as accurate as the Salah times. And like I said, we should use these calculations, but only outside the zone of uncertainty. Here is a very good fatwa by Sheikh Al-Uthaymin on solar eclipse and dates, and basically he's saying that it's not possible to have an eclipse later than the sunset and still have the next day as the first of the month. And it's a very good fatwa. Let me just point out to the last points he's saying. He says, therefore if a person claims that the month began on the same night when an eclipse took place after sunset, is like a person who claims that the moon would be in a full moon position in the same night when it was born, or like the person who claims that the sun would rise before dawn, or like a baby will show up before he gets out of the womb of his mother. All these things are impossible according to the rules and behavior that Almighty Allah has ordained for the splendid universe in its precise system. As for the belief in the power of Almighty Allah, there is no doubt that Almighty Allah is capable to do anything, and He is also capable to combine the two moons and to separate them and to dim them or to make them shining in their light at any time. As He stated in the glorious Quran in Surah Al-Qiyamah, at length when the sight is dazed and the moon is buried in darkness and the sun and moon are joined together, that day man will say, where is the refuge? But the rules that Almighty Allah laid down concerning the sun and the moon of this world are fixed and do not change, except in the case of a miracle for a prophet or in the honor of a wali. So basically Shaykh Al-Uthaymin is saying is that don't expect these miracles to be happening every year in Saudi and you get all these wrong dates.